Well, the two best CBC radio hosts are bringing a special show to Saskatoon. As usual, it will be hard-hitting, investigative, and dedicated to stories every other journalist is afraid to tackle. Pat Kelly and Peter Oldring are the hosts of CBC's This Is That. They're also veteran comedians bringing their stories to the Broadway Theatre in Saskatoon on Sunday. It's called A Perfectly Reasonable Night of Comedy. It also includes Carolyn Taylor from Baroness Von Sketch. And for more on what is sure to be an insightful and hilarious evening, it's an honor to have Peter Oldring joining us now. Good afternoon, Peter.
Good afternoon. Pleasure to be with you, Peter. Pleasure to be in Saskatoon.
That's right. Look, I'm a massive fan of This Is That, so I want to go all the way back. How did you guys...
Let's do it. We'll do the deep cuts.
The deep cuts, that's right. How did you come up with this? How did you pitch it? Like, what was the creation of This Is That as an idea?
Yeah, originally, both Pat and I kind of grew up, and probably like a lot of Canadians, CBC was always sort of on in the background. As a kid, we'd have it on in the car, and or it'd be on in the house, on the radio. So everyone, as a Canadian, you kind of have a familiarity with that recognizable tone of CBC Radio 1. And, the other thing that is really fun about Radio 1 is that it kind of has such a soup to nuts kind of content. It can be a 25-minute conversation with a cheesemonger in northern Quebec. It sort of covers a lot of territory. And for us as comedians and sketch performers, people that like to improvise and characters, it just offered this great world of like, well, hey, we can kind of play any character. And for us, we just thought it was a really fun idea to sort of have ridiculous premises, ridiculous, outrageous stories, but just told in a very sort of straight, dry way in sort of that recognizable Radio 1 tone. And for us, we just thought, well, this is kind of like almost like a bit of a love letter to CBC. Like everyone would kind of get it, we're having some fun doing ridiculous stories but sort of telling it in a very earnest tone. And we very quickly realized that a good chunk of the audience didn't necessarily know that it was a comedy show. That they were kind of thinking like, oh, hold on a second. I think are people in Calgary really eating animals out of the aquarium? So we kind of quickly realized, oh wow, we hadn't assumed that people would necessarily think that the stories themselves were true.
Peter, let me jump in there because you just touched on like every question I wanted to ask and have always wondered what This Is That. So let's talk about the people will know famously the phone calls you get that are included in the episodes.
Yes.
And even at the beginning, I was like, are these all real? And it's just amazing the reactions you would get. What was that like when you first started making the show and you'd get these calls?
We thought we were in trouble. We were like, uh-oh, I think this is it. It's over. It's over after the first episode. But, truthfully, we really were shocked. We didn't expect to have that kind of response. And CBC, the executives who were kind of championing the show with us and for us, they were really behind us. They were like, you know what, let's kind of stay with this. People are really responding. To let you know, on the very first episode that we ever did, we actually did include listener feedback, a little audio pack, because that is such an iconic part of a lot of CBC shows. So we actually, in the first episode, did our own, we were being people calling in, sort of doing the voices of people calling in. So I think in the first episode, it was things like, hello, so-and-so calling from, Red Deer. Just thought you should know that an Elizabethan name for a rabbit is a coney. Thought you'd enjoy that. And so, we sort of thought, well, that's kind of a fun, we'll sort of play these voices of people calling in. But we realized by episode 2, we didn't need to play any of the voices because we had a lot of response. So, as of episode 2 and beyond, the voices that you hear of people phoning in, those are real Canadians responding in truth to whatever outrageous story that we were sharing. But I will say, as the show would progress, it kind of became like this little inside secret. It's like, if you know that it's a comedy show, you're kind of in the club. And so we would often get calls from people who would call outraged at a story, in the beginning of the episode. And then as the episode would progress, they'd call back and go, hey, yeah, that was me. I called in 15 minutes ago, outraged, that the Canadian military is switching over to just using mountain bikes for the
Yep,
main,
I love that one. That's a good one.
form of transportation. Now I realize it's a satire. Disregard my earlier message. Great job. You got me.
Was it the Regina Police who were instituting mandatory casual Fridays?
Absolutely. I mean, why should they be excluded?
That was a
Everyone
good
else
one.
gets to have fun in the office. Just get on the flip-flops and bathing shorts, maybe some board shorts. As long as there's a place to holster your weapon, then you're fine. You can still serve.
Did you call any of those listeners back, or like did you have any engagement with them? Like, was there ever a call where you're like, I think we've got to tell this person this isn't a real news story?
We never did reach out. We in email, of course, if people would email in, we would respond. Our producing partner, Chris Kelly, would send a message saying, "Hey, received your email. Just want you to know it's a satirical show. Don't worry, this isn't happening. It's we're doing a comedy show, but we appreciate your response." So we definitely did let some those that would write in with email, but those that phone. We didn't call back. I'm not sure if you're not sure if we have the ability to do that, to call. I don't know if there was people leaving numbers or
Right,
what, but we
fair
did
enough.
at least an email. And then, it started out for us really truthfully, very innocently, us just sort of saying, hey, the landscape, the sound, the world of Radio 1 as a comedian is a fun place to play around. And as the show kind of went on and the notion of fake news kind of took on its own more of a political tone, it really did shift for us because when we started, that really wasn't sort of the notion of fake news wasn't really a buzz term, or it wasn't really sort of in the zeitgeist. As the show progressed, all of a sudden the ideas of like the dangers of fake news and people it had much more serious connotations. And so at the end of the run of the show, we had to begin to put labeling that the show is satire. And for us, it was kind of like a bit of a sad moment, to be honest.
You don't want to have to do that, right?
No, and I think part of the fun is kind of not calling it out and sort of riding that line that really actually asks a listener to kind of like sit forward a little bit, exercise a little bit of critical thinking, kind of do some of the due diligence on the side of a listener to sort of go, could this really be happening? And so for us, it's actually why we ended up stopping doing the show. We could have continued on. We had this wonderful run. Like we have loved doing that show, but we also just sort of felt, all things come to an end. And we'd like to do it on our terms. It'd be nice to be able to step away when we sort of feel like, hey, we're the ones that are saying we've had a lot of fun with this, and let's bring the entire show to a close. And part of that was, it did have to do with the idea that notions of fake news were a lot different by the time that show ended from where it began. And just to let you know, because you had asked originally too, like how did the show begin and how did we pitch it? We had a contact over at the CBC who had reached out to us to say, hey, if you guys ever want to had an idea for a comedy radio show, we'd love to hear it. Because at the time, Pat and I had a show that was kind of a satirical breakfast TV show that was running on Comedy Network called Good Morning World. And so we, they had reached out to say, hey, if you ever had a comedy idea for the radio, we'd love to hear it. And so we said, actually, we kind of do have an idea. But instead of kind of telling you what it is, if you'd give us some recording equipment, we'll just go and, make this thing. And so we really did take a little mobile recording device. And then Pat and I just sort of did 4 stories. And the idea was, let's sort of see if we can mirror or mimic that tone of Radio 1, but make the stories themselves completely ridiculous. And I think, like, as an example, in the presentation, the 20-minute presentation that we gave to CBC Radio, one of the stories was of a person who was commuting from Calgary to Vancouver for work, but driving literally every day. So they'd be like driving 12 hours to do like 4 hours of work and then drive back. And it's because they loved the Calgary lifestyle, but there was work opportunity in Vancouver. And so it was like, just kind of a documentary of this person, to eliminate having to go to gas stations to use the restroom. And there was a milk jug in the vehicle. And, it was just like painting this picture of a person who never slept, but all because they loved the Calgary lifestyle. But hey, work was calling in BC. So,
Somewhat related, Peter, and we could talk all day just about, how the timing was obviously perfect. As you mentioned, it was kind of the dawn of what we know as the fake news rhetoric now.
Yeah,
you were
right.
there kind of during the perfect time. But I also loved
Yeah.
that I knew the show. I knew your voices, but you would still get me on some stories, and I want to share this one that you fooled me on.
All right.
Well, if there's one thing that Canadians can count on, it's the morning commute. So we hit the streets to find out how you get to work.
How'd you get to work this morning?
Oh, I took my rollerblades.
Excuse me, guys. How do you guys get to work in the morning?
Rollerblades.
How do you?
Rollerblades.
How do you get to work in the morning?
Rollerblades?
Rollerblades. Rollerblades.
Rollerblade.
Oh, I got here on rollerblades, actually.
How do you get to work in the morning?
Rollerblades.
Rollerblades.
How about you?
Rollerblades.
Wonderful.
Statistic: 87% of Canadians take rollerblades to work. For more stats like this, follow @stats_Canada on Twitter.
I remember driving in my car. It was such an embedded memory that I remember exactly where I was. I was on the Broadway Bridge in Saskatoon, and it jarred me because I did think it was just a regular CBC radio story, because that is something they would do, right? Oh, let's hit the street and talk to people about their morning commute. And I was like, they keep saying rollerblades. What is going on? And you duped me. You got me.
It was the rollerblade revolution, right?
What made you want to do stories like that, right? Where it wasn't just you and Pat.
Yeah, honestly, as we had originally said, that idea of trying to have some fun and mirror some of the recognizable sounds and tones of CBC, that's such a big part of it too, right? I mean, going out and doing the streeter and listening to voices across the country. And so in a lot of ways, we were really trying to find as much variety that lived in the recognizable world of what we hear on CBC, that we would kind of always just get little inspiration about, like, oh, hey, I always hear that type of story or this type of segment. Let's do our version of one. And in fact, in the beginning days, we even met with a radio producer at CBC who was the stuff that they were working on was far more documentary series, traditional straight up interviews. And they actually told us, some formats that a trained journalist might follow. And so we kind of were given almost like an inside look into different ways in which you can put a story together, or how you can do, like a boxcar interview, as I recall, which is somebody who's hosting has an interview with somebody, then they move on to another person, like, boxcars on a train. And so that you could sort of, like, you speak to somebody, then we're done with them. We'll speak to somebody who has a differing opinion on the subject, that we're talking about. And so it's kind of like, we were given a little crash course in some different ways in which stories might be told in a more traditional, sincere, straight way, that we were then kind of having some fun within the content.
Before we get to the Broadway Theatre show, I have to embarrass my partner a little bit, because she once told me after work, she came home and she said, "You will never believe the ridiculous news story I just heard. Some guy is wandering across Canada." And I said, "What? He's doing what?" "He's wandering across Canada." I said, "You sure that wasn't This Is That?" Was that one that do you remember that one?
Yeah, I mean, there was one, and I think, I'm trying to recall, I think that, I definitely remember it, and we were checking in with this guy, and I'm trying to remember what was his impetus to
I couldn't find the episode. I was looking in the archives and I couldn't find it.
I do remember, because Pat was interviewing me and I was wandering around in my backyard. Because this is the other thing, is that we would try to, if it's a documentary, we would try to then go out in the field so that it actually sounded how you might do a documentary. As an example, we did this silly story called Hunt and Release, which was these two buddies who would take tranquilizer darts out into the woods to go hunting because they liked the thrill of hunting, but they hated the idea of killing an animal.
Yep.
And so they would go out into the woods and then they would hunt with tranquilizer darts to then go and get like cuddling selfies with like a sleeping deer or like, a bunny. And so in truth, here we are, adult men wandering around in the woods, play acting that we're hunting with tranquilizer darts, looking for elk. And so we try to make it what it would be so that then the sound is like, oh yeah, it sounds like these guys are crawling, over logs and through brush, and it's because we are. And so yeah, I do remember that story. I just can't remember exactly the reasoning. I think it was that he had lost a bet, and that he felt that he had to honor the bet that he made in a bar. Okay. And so he was just wandering. And so I remember, Pat doing the interview and me just kind of begrudgingly in an exhausted way, just going, I don't know why I agree to do it. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm lost. I'm somewhere. I don't know where I am. I'm out here. You gonna make it all the way? I don't know. I have no clue where I am.
I'm gonna have to dig that out. I was looking in the archives and I couldn't find the exact reference. It
was definitely a This Is That story. Although, listen, hey, it also could be a real story.
That's what I mean.
That
yeah,
could have also happened on As It Happened. Somebody could have just been out for a wander and got carried away.
I might have been teasing her for years, and it was actually a real news story. Who knows? Peter, obviously, you got so many fans here in Saskatchewan. What are you bringing to this live show with Paul Kelly and Carolyn Taylor from Baroness Von Sketch? What are you going to be doing at the Broadway Theatre?
Pat Kelly and Carolyn Taylor, absolutely. So, we are old comedy friends. I mean, certainly, people know Pat and I. We've come to the Broadway Theatre, obviously doing our live show with This Is That. And Carolyn Taylor is one of our longtime comedic collaborating partners and friends. And we all started out performing at the Second City in Toronto and improvising and doing sketch comedy together. And, Carolyn is just unbelievable. You've seen her on Baroness Von Sketch. You've seen her on, she has her own show, I Have Nothing, which is on Crave. If you haven't seen it, it's hilarious. You've got to check it out. But so the three of us came together and said, you know what? It's been 25 years since we've performed comedy together. Let's do it. So we, got together in the last spring and started to kind of collaborating on what a show might look like if we're working on it together. And so this show, A Perfectly Reasonable Night of Comedy, is some sketch comedy, some improv comedy. Carolyn does a hilarious figure skating. I won't give too much of the info out, but she's doing some live figure skating on stage, so you got to see it to believe it. But we have a lot of fun, share some stories. This is part of our Western Canada tour, and we've done a few shows already, and we're heading to Saskatoon. We'll be there on Sunday, October 19th. At the Broadway Theatre. We love it there. Like, as I say, this is probably our, maybe fourth time getting to do a show there. So
is that where you ended? This Is That where you recorded your last episode there?
Yeah, I think that was our last live episode. You're absolutely right. Yeah, and it was pretty funny. We had never wanted to sort of play one of our a live episode because the conceit is that it's not a comedy show.
Right, exactly.
And we're like, if you play the live episode, then you hear the audience, laughing, go, oh, it's okay, it's a comedy show. But we did, when we decided to end the show, we thought, you know what, it would be, we'd love to be able to play one of the live shows we did, and that was what we recorded in Saskatoon at the Broadway. So definitely special memories for us there, and we're really excited to be coming back. And I think those that have loved This Is That, you're gonna love this show. It's it's in the same world, but a little bit different. Trying a couple different comedy sketches and some improv with our incredible pal Carolyn. So definitely come on out Sunday night. Have a great night out. Have a few laughs. Come out and start. It's either end your week right or start your week.
That's right, exactly.
How you think of it? So
Peter, before I let you go, was Saskatchewan the best or the easiest to pull material from for This Is That?
Oh my God. Well, everywhere has their we've had fun all across Canada. And I would say that, probably for me, because I did grow up in Alberta, I can be a little bit kind of extra satirical on Alberta because, hey, I am an Albertan.
Right,
So,
yep.
I could maybe kind of have a little bit more fun playing up some of the more stereotypical Alberta perspectives, if you want. So I kind of had a little bit of fun with that. But, I will say that Pat's grandparents, they grew up on a farm and had a farm for their whole life just outside of Saskatoon. So for Pat, coming back to Saskatoon has its own special memories and some characters that he's pulled on through family connections there as well. So for sure.
Well, it's a bit of a homecoming for both of you. Peter, thank you so much.
You know it.